Today on Rock Feed, we are joined by an attorney representing Chris Fehn from Slipknot. You guys are familiar with the story we've been covering, in which there is an ongoing legal dispute. A lot of people are confused about exactly what the contents are of the legal complaint. Some people have said they weren't sure if it was real, which obviously it is. But we are very fortunate today to be joined by one of Chris Fehn's attorneys, Mr. Joel B. Rothman of Srip Law. You can learn more about their firm in the description of this video. You guys handle mostly like intellectual property and things of that nature?
Yeah, thank you. We represent creators.
Yes.
And creative people. So not just musicians, but also artists, inventors, photographers, anyone who is creative for a living is someone who might need the help of a lawyer every once in a while if something that they created was copied without their permission, or if rights that they had to work that they do weren't respected, and that's the kind of work that we do.
Absolutely. That's wonderful, and I can see that you and your firm are very accomplished as well.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here.
Sure.
So this Chris Fehn situation obviously surprised a lot of Slipknot fans. First and foremost, can you speak on how he's doing well personally right now?
Chris is doing very well, and he really appreciates all the good wishes from fans. This is in many ways a business dispute between band members. We don't think that there's cause for personal animus between members, and we hope that the parties can be civil. It's called civil litigation for a reason.
Yes.
But at the same time, we feel strongly that Chris, who was a very early member of Slipknot, that he's entitled to be treated in a way that's consistent with all of his contributions to the band over the course of way more than or around 20 years.
Yes.
So and he wasn't, which is why we felt like we needed to bring this lawsuit.
Absolutely. And as I understand it from reading an interview that I think one of your partner attorneys or someone associated with your firm did, he had mentioned that really Chris doesn't want there to be that personal animus with the other members. And would you say it's a fair assessment that Chris would very much like to remain being in Slipknot? So
the interview that you referred to, I think some of what Joe Dunn, who's our New York office attorney, who was speaking in that, I think some of what he said was taken out of context. So let me try and correct that. First of all, the lawsuit came about because in order for Chris to continue to participate in the band and attend recording sessions for the album that the band is working on, he was presented with a very onerous take it or leave it, you're not an equal member of the band type proposal. And I'm not going to go into the details of it, but let me put it this way. If you had spent 20 years of your life devoted to an enterprise like Slipknot, where you had given your heart, your soul, your sweat, your blood, your tears to, making the band the best it could be the way that so many of its fans love. And then you were told you're a second-class citizen here. I doubt that anyone who's listening to this would feel any differently from the way Chris felt, which was that he wasn't being given the respect that he deserved. And in speaking to his attorneys, me and Daniel Novick of Music Maker Law, who works with regularly musical acts of all kinds on contractual matters, what we saw was that Chris, from the beginning of Slipknot, was treated like an equal. And it wasn't until later, after the band had experienced success, that they began to treat Chris like less than that equal. And we looked at that and we said, well, that doesn't seem fair. Based on the facts as we understood them, that he was began as an equal partner in the band in the beginning, he should continue to be treated in that same fashion.
Certainly. And after Chris, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, as Chris began asking for access to maybe some of the financial records of Slipknot, what was he told at that point?
Oh, he was told, you can't have them. And that put us in a position of having to advise our client with no information whatsoever. The other thing that has been going on, which is I've noted in comes up in a few of the productions that you have. What appears to have been going on is that management for the band appears to have been doing two things. Number one, representing individual members of the band while representing the band as a whole, where their loyalties to individual members interfere with their ability to represent the whole band, especially if members of the band aren't being treated equally. So we noticed that going on, and we also noticed that information about the band was, and the band's activities was being withheld by management from some band members like Chris, but not from others. And as a result of that, we looked not only at whether Slipknot, the group, wasn't being fair to Chris, but whether Slipknot's business management, Rob Shore's company, whether they weren't being fair to Chris.
Understood. And so when you have a situation like that, there was this partnership that I read about in the document. And again, forgive me, very elementary understanding of this stuff, but this partnership, was this something that was just continuous, or was it like, did they sit down in the 90s and hammer this out?
So it's a really interesting question, and it to a lawyer like me, for a lot of your viewers, it may seem arcane and boring, but a partnership can arise just because two or more people agree to work together to share in the profits and share in the losses. Mm-hmm. And that basically is enough to create a partnership. And
sounds sort of like a common law marriage, almost, sort of. Yeah. And that might not be a bad analogy. But
let me give you an example. Many different bands have, in fact, been in disputes with each other over the course of rock and roll history, where courts have looked at whether what was going on was really a partnership. And so it may sound a little strange, but and I'm looking to see so I can give you some examples. There have been a number of cases where bands from the 60s all the way through today have been involved in disputes, and courts looked at whether what they were really involved in was not a corporation or a limited liability company, but whether they all agreed to work as partners on behalf of the band. And I can give you some examples if you give me a minute, but go ahead.
Certainly. And so Slipknot, essentially, it sounds like maybe what you're saying is that they had this from the get-go where it was an equal, it was just basically that it was understood that it was an equal situation, and then they were, allegedly going back and trying to change that later on.
Right. And but again, it wasn't necessarily because everybody sat down and agreed we're all going to be equal partners, because how often does that happen?
Yeah.
Rather, it's because and you detailed some of how Slipknot came together, where some of it happened late at night in the back room at the gas station, in Des Moines, Iowa, because that's where I think Geordie worked. And unless I'm getting the name wrong, forgive me. And
let's please note, guys, in the comments, Joel is an attorney. He is a rock fan. He does like rock music, but he is a professional, and he doesn't have time to study up on all the individual intricacies of heavy metal.
So who was it then who had the job at Sinclair?
It was Joey, if I remember correctly. You were very close. Yeah.
Not Geordie.
Yeah. Yeah, not Geordie.
Sorry. So there were a few of them who were working, and I think if you ask them, well, did everybody sit around and discuss their partnership and the terms of the partnership and create a partnership agreement? I think they'd tell you no. That's we didn't even know if this thing was going to be successful. All we knew was that we were creating music that we liked, and we thought other people would like it, and if we just had a shot, then more people would like it, and we would be successful. So under those circumstances, which is what happened, and great for Slipknot fans that they were successful, it's Chris's position in this case that his participation began as a partner in a partnership. Yeah. And that's what Slipknot was at the time.
Certainly. Slipknot, they put out this statement where they essentially said, Chris knows why he's not in the band anymore. Does he have any sense of what they meant by that?
Yeah, so not really. The suggestion that Chris did something personally to any member of the band, Chris rejects. The suggestion that Chris, isn't up to it musically, is absolutely false. In fact, it's our position that the band is going to miss Chris on the recordings it's doing, the compositions it makes. There's a reason why Chris is a one of the composers on all the band's work, why he is an important background vocalist and percussionist on all the band's recordings. And for anyone to suggest that he doesn't make a valuable contribution, I think is going to be absurd to anyone who follows the band.
Yeah.
The reason why the lawsuit was filed was, as I said before, Chris was denied access to information about the band and its business, and he was essentially being proposed that he would be a second-class citizen in the band, and that, in our view, was not fair. It wasn't equitable, and it wasn't consistent with his role from the very beginning.
Yeah.
By the way, issues involving partnerships in rock bands have presented themselves involving bands like Green Day, the Romantics, Beastie Boys. I could go on and on. This is Steppenwolf. This is not new. Jay Giles, this is not a new thing. Informal partnerships among musicians can lead to partnership claims, and in our view, those claims, as well as the breach of fiduciary duty claims, something that every member of a partnership owes to another, that they treat the other members of the partnership fairly and as if they were fiduciaries, trusted advisors, rather than at arm's length. These are not uncommon claims, and they've been made many times before.
Certainly. And so would you think that, there was any potential for, I guess what I'm trying to say is there are some people out there who have, we've seen it in the comments on our videos, I've seen it on, various other comment places on social media. What a terrible way to phrase that, comment places. But, people who would say, okay, Chris filed this lawsuit. How come other members of Slipknot that aren't Corey and Clown aren't filing a suit if maybe they may be getting the same, if they might be having the same issue? Is there any thought to that?
I don't know why Chris was singled out this way. Obviously, I don't know what's going on with other band members, and certainly if the litigation proceeds, discovery in the case, depositions, and document production is going to show what is going on. And so we'll find out, good or bad. And that's an unfortunate part of the process. If if the band had come forward and was willing to engage with us and discuss the issues and provide us with information which we're going to be able to discover in the case anyway, if they had done so, then there was no need to file suit. I don't know if others in the band feel the way Chris does, but we'll find out.
That's very interesting. Thus far, obviously Slipknot has been very minced in their words, understandably, in those sort of situations, everyone involved, just like Chris hasn't, I think wisely hasn't been blasting all over social media about this, and so moving forward, do you think that it would be Chris's wish to maybe try to resolve this in a way where he could return to Slipknot?
I don't know where Chris is currently artistically and musically.
Yeah.
That's a decision that he's going to need to make. But I can tell you that much of what I've seen in terms of your coverage of the band and the life that the band members in the past have led might give me pause in terms of wanting to go back into that environment. That's just me. But I think we're pretty far from that, because the response to our request for information, which led to the filing of this lawsuit, was essentially that Chris is out and we're not giving you anything.
Wow.
So it's a two-way street. Okay?
Yeah.
Just like a band is however many members are in it, right? It's a group of people who all want to be there and all have roles to play. You're not going to get on that stage if you are one out of 8 other people and the other 8 are telling you we don't want you there, and and you can't come. At the same time, what are you going to do? You're just going to jump on stage and play your part when the other 8 have said go away? You won't even make it through the entrance, I would think, unless you buy a ticket.
Yeah.
I wish there was a short answer to it. Yeah. The long answer is what I've said. Maybe the short answer is it depends. But there's a lot it depends on, and it's ultimately Chris's decision to make. And you mentioned before he hasn't spoken about it on social media, and that's because Chris doesn't want to litigate this case in social media.
Yeah.
And he doesn't believe that it should be, and we would hope that the other members of the band would feel the same way, but I can't control them.
Yeah, I think they have done a good job of not being out there saying things. There were some early comments that some had made online, just in response, but they've ceased really talking about it in that sense. But the question, I guess, from that interview also with that there were a lot of questions about was essentially saying that Chris's employment with the band hadn't changed. And that was sort of an ambiguous statement, unintentionally, of course. But can you expound upon that? Does that mean that Chris hasn't specifically received some sort of an official termination from the band?
So there hasn't been, to my knowledge, a notice sent to Chris that says you're out.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't presented to him in that way. He was given a take it or leave it contract. We asked for information so we could advise him. We were told we're not getting the information, and we were also told that if Chris doesn't sign this take it or leave it contract, that he shouldn't show up at the next recording session.
Wow.
And what do you do under those circumstances?
So let me get this straight, Joel. So in any negotiation, right? Let's say you're presented with a contract. It would be common practice to run that by an attorney. And that's just standard operating procedure. So the reaction to that was maybe they felt he was being malicious by doing that. I mean, that's pretty standard.
I don't know. I don't know what their perception of Chris is hiring an attorney and the attorney's asking for information. I don't know what their perception is, right? I can't read that. All I know is that we were given a contract. We asked for information to be able to advise our client on the contract he was signing. We were told, if you don't sign the contract, don't show up. And we're not giving you the information you asked for.
Wow.
That's it.
Well, hopefully through all of this, I think that all Slipknot fans will agree that maybe both parties can come together and work this thing out, and maybe hopefully that can work amicably. Nobody wants to see these guys, having this sort of a falling out. And it was truly unexpected to see. Everyone's been looking forward ahead to this new album release and the tour that they had coming up. Certainly, I'm sure Chris was as well. And it is very sad. Please pass along everyone's support to him,
Sure.
And so is there any other misconception out there? I don't want to hold you too long. Is there any other misconception out there that you would like to clear up, or any message from Chris that you would like to get out there to the fans?
Well, other than that, he of course appreciates their support.
Yes.
I want to make sure that that Slipknot and its lawyers know that we're serious. The case has been filed in New York State Court. I've been admitted to practice in New York since 1991, before the heavy metal scene really took off, way before Slipknot formed. I'm a former prosecutor, and we will get to the bottom of this the way we do every other case if it has to move forward. So we'll take depositions, we'll get testimony, we'll get documents, because that's the job I do. Unfortunately, I can't play guitar, I can't sing, can't play drums. And so what I do is I live vicariously through my clients by representing creative people, and in doing so, I get to experience the amazing things that they get to do. And part of doing that is doing my job as an aggressive attorney who isn't afraid to try cases. And if we have to go that way, we will.
Well, Joel, I really appreciate you being here, and you have cleared up a lot of misconceptions and misinformation that's out there. So really grateful for you to come on with such short notice, and look forward to, you're always welcome here to talk about this if you have anything to say. Likewise with Chris, and we really appreciate having you here today and speaking to the fans directly.
All right. Well, it's my pleasure, and keep doing the great job you're doing.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye-bye.